Well, the holiday season is here, and while you're stocking the stuffings for your loved ones, why not take a few minutes to go ahead and take care of your own financial stocking with some tips that can bring you a little bit closer to retirement success. Today, we got 10 stocking stuffer ideas for your financial future. Mike, I know you probably have a number of stockings that need to be stuffed this year for your family, having a large family. But today I want to focus a little bit on what we can do for ourselves, some just kind of ideas that maybe we can put towards 2025 to kind of help us put us in a little bit better shape financially.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's important to take care of things and just keep these things in mind. I think as we're at the end of the year, you still have a little bit of time to get some things done for 2024.
All right. Well, I'm going to list of 10 again. Okay. If you have any questions for Mike, principalpreservationservices.com is a great place to start. You can schedule a time to meet with Mike right there through the website, but you can also call 855-987-8888. All right, so maxing out your retirement contributions. That's a great place to start if you want to give yourself a little something extra. Go ahead and max those things out.
Absolutely. And remember, these employer sponsor plans, you have to make those contributions in 2024 to make them count for 2024. Unlike making IRA contributions or Roth IRA contributions, you have till April 15th to make those contributions for 2024. So you have, roughly 3.5 months after 2024 to make those contributions. So for those 401ks, 403bs, TSBs, deferred comps, you have to make those contributions this year. And just make sure that you're putting as much in as you can. At minimum, you need to be putting enough money in to get the company match. So don't be putting anything less than that and keep increasing that as you get raises throughout the years.
All right. So make sure, again, we're running up on the end of the year. So take a few minutes before we turn the page to 2025 to make sure you're doing all you can do in that regard. All right. Here's another quick actionable idea. It's just reviewing your Social Security strategy. Mike, I know a lot of people just kind of assume that, hey, I claim as early as I want to, or I'm going to wait as long to my full retirement age or wait as long as I possibly can to maximize my benefit. But every strategy is going to be different for each person.
It's different. And then we have health issues. And then we have maybe retiring sooner, maybe not by choice. And so a lot of these Social Security, dates will change based off some these other factors that come into play. And also, I think people are assuming that when you pull up that Social Security benefit statement online, and maybe it's, your full retirement date is 5 years away from now, and it gives you a number. But what Social Security is not factoring in is any future cost of living. So we have a program here that we will actually factor in a 2% average cost of living, which is actually higher. It's actually higher than the 2. But we want to put some cost of living adjustment on there. It's going to be a little bit more accurate than what Social Security is actually providing. But I was looking at those numbers and pulling up your statement every year to make sure if something was to happen, what is the best way? What we have been finding is, for those who have done some really good planning, sometimes taking Social Security at an earlier age is not going to affect them as if they're going to wait. Obviously, there's a lot of factors, healthcare, and if you're going to retire before 65, before Medicare age. But the key is revisiting it every year. And you have to be flexible with your planning. If things change, job or health, that we can pivot and take those benefits maybe a little sooner.
All right. Next one, Mike, I like this one too, because I've done this recently, just consolidating old retirement accounts. I feel like it makes things so much easier to manage. It also kind of relieves a little stress of just keeping up with everything and really not knowing exactly what you have.
Right. I've met people who have 19 different retirement accounts, and I'm like, you do not want to have that many retirement accounts in retirement. It's a lot to, look over, and you might forget one and changing the investment. So I'm a big fan. If you have these old 401ks from a previous employer, or you retired and you're 59 and a half, if you retired and you're 59 and a half or older, you can actually take some of your 401k money or all of it out into an IRA. I like consolidating these accounts into IRAs. You have more control, a lot more investments to pick from. And why would you want to roll over a previous 401k into your current 401k? Well, now you're subject just to the 10 to 20 investments that your current employer offers. and nobody's really managing it. It's not the best way to do things. Definitely consolidate, meet with us, or your advisor, wherever you're at, to make sure they're putting the IRAs.
Yeah, it might seem overwhelming to try to track down everything and then have to do the paperwork or whatever process you need to do to get it over, but it's worth it after you take the time. So make it a priority if you haven't done that yet, especially if you have 19 accounts. That seems crazy to me.
Yeah.
I'm sure that happens. All right. What about a bucket strategy for retirement income, Mike? Creating this for 2025. What is a bucket strategy and why can it benefit you?
Yeah, we want to look at our clients' investments or money holistically from a 30,000, foot view, because most advisors want to look at just the money that's invested in the market. That's important. You want to be diversified in that, but you really want to be diversified over 3 buckets, we call it. You want to have money in the market. That's important. And that needs to be actively managed and have consistent reviews and make sure that is, the risk tolerance is correct for where you are in the stage of life, and close to retirement or not. Then you want to have safe money. You want to make sure you have enough money that's for emergencies, that is not in the market, that is not forcing to sell an investment and pay taxes on to get money out. We want to make sure you have that bucket. And you also want to have money that is making some decent rate of returns without having any risk to the market. Now, parents used to look at bonds to be that. Grandparents, great-grandparents used to use the bond market. Well, bond market has failed the last couple of years, and the markets have not been doing great on the bond funds. So I see bond funds still down 10 to 16+% the last 3 years. So what you want to do is make sure you have money that is safe, growing, beating inflation without risk.
All right. Next, stocking stuff for idea for you is to revisit your estate plan. Maybe you set one up years ago. You haven't done it at all, but either way, take some time, look back over, make sure everything is exactly what you want it to be. Yeah.
Estate planning isn't just do it once and you're done, right?
Yeah.
Estate plans should be reviewed anytime there's any changes. Married, divorced, widowed, have kids. Kids are adults now. Move to property, buy another property or land. A lot of things change. And a lot of people don't want to talk about mortality, that we're all going to pass away someday, but we want to make sure that it is being updated. We update our health insurance every year. I just signed documents for health insurance for our employees. We update our life insurance. We're updating our, homeowners insurance and car insurance every year, but we don't want to look at the thing that's insuring our whole estate, and that's the estate plan, and hopefully a revocable living trust for most people. Make sure it's done. You have the trust done to protect your estate, everything you worked your whole life for. Make sure you put some time and effort into that, along with those living documents, which is those power of attorneys for healthcare and finances, to make sure if you can't speak for yourself, somebody else can and make those decisions for you.
Now we're talking about stocking stuff for ideas for financial freedom. If you have questions for Mike, 855-987-8888, or log on principalpreservationservices.com. You can learn more about building out your retirement reality roadmap. All right, I got 5 more I want to run through with you, Mike, here. Planning for inflation. Got to do it, right? I mean, we've all been kind of hit with that harsh reality over the last couple of years. Things have been pulling back a little bit, but we know that every single year in retirement, we have to be planning for inflation.
Yeah, and I find it interesting. Most advisors, when they do retirement planning, don't factor in any cost of living, any inflation in those numbers. And like you said, we've been hit hard the last couple of years with inflation. And if you needed $6,000 a month to live roughly 3 years ago, you're probably going to be needing $7,500 a month today. So that's reality. And so you have to make sure when you're doing planning that you're adjusting your expenses with inflation every year. Obviously, Social Security doesn't keep up with inflation, averaging, 2, maybe a little bit better than 2% of a cost of living adjustment. And if you have some of these private pensions, they don't adjust it at all with inflation. So when you're doing planning, you have to make sure that your bucket of money is going to be able to fit those needs and those gaps as inflation keeps increasing throughout retirement. So it's easy to make sure you have enough money at your same spending habits today, but $6,000 a month in 20 years it might be $12,000 a month, and you need to make sure you have that money saved to cover that gap.
All right, next up, you got to prepare for required and minimum distributions, your RMDs, Mike. So how do you get prepared for this if you haven't already?
First of all, you have to know when to take them. I think there's a lot of confusion because they've changed the date so many times recently. It used to be 70 and a half, and then they changed it to 72. That was the first version of Secure Act. And then Secure Act 2.0, they changed it to 73. And if you're born in 1960 or later, it's 75. So it gets to be a little confusing, right? And knowing when to take it, the year you turn, say 73 right now, is when you have to take them by December 31st. Your very first RMDs, you can actually postpone till April 1st next year, not April 15th, but April 1st. But then next year you have to take out two. So make sure you are just taking them out on a yearly basis. And if you have IRAs and 401ks and 403bs, I do also recommend consolidation for this because IRAs make it a lot easier to take out your RMDs than having multiple retirement accounts, employer-sponsored plans.
All right. Next, Mike, is reassess your risk tolerance. I think a lot of people just think, well, maybe that means scaling it back. Does it ever mean taking on more risk when you reassess things?
Typically not. I mean, the older we get, we should take on less risk, or the closer we get to retirement or in retirement. Most people can't afford to take on a 2008 again, where, the market lost 38%. That could be, catastrophic in most people's plans. And, they're going to panic, and they might just have to put their retirement dreams and goals on hold or go back to work, or just not retire. If they're close to retirement. So the key is you want to make sure you're adjusting for your tolerance today, not where it was 5, 10, 15 years ago. And with the markets being so strong, everybody's, accounts are probably the highest they've ever been. And the last thing you want to do is subject that to a massive loss right before at retirement, where now you have to postpone to get your money back, postpone retirement, because you don't have those years ahead of you. You go back to 2008, here that was already, 16 years ago, 16, almost 17 years ago when the last bubble hit. So that means you're 17 years younger. If you're 65 today, you're late 40s when that happened. You had time to recover. Now it's a different story. You have that time. You don't. So you want to make sure investing appropriately, the right of risk today.
Yeah, you want to get it right. You don't want to jeopardize your retirement. And you never know when things are going to hit you, which is why our next item here is to boost your emergency fund. So, Mike, what level do we need to get it up to make sure you feel comfortable in case, the worst happens?
Yeah, and I see a big disparity here. I have people with too much emergency funds, and they have hundreds and hundreds of thousands in the bank. And then I see people who have hardly anything. And two numbers I like is when you're working, you should have 3 months to 6 months of your expenses in an emergency fund. I know the banks don't pay enough money, and they used to pay better. Now they're starting to drop rates because of, the feds are dropping rates. The money's not there to, in the bank to make a bunch of money. It's not there to retire sooner. It's there for emergencies, exactly what you need it for. In retirement, when you're on a fixed income, you need 6 months to 12 months of your expenses. So make sure you're working on building that up. I see people just constantly hovering around that $2,000 to $5,000 range. What happens is you have a major, expense, healthcare, car related, whatever, house related. Now all of a sudden you're starting to borrow money. And that's where people get in debt, taking on their credit cards, taking money out of their IRAs to cover these emergency funds. And I say, these emergency funds, they shouldn't be used with your IRAs. Obviously, you have that money there, but your IRAs are to supplement your retirement, not for, vacations and other things that, buying cars and buying houses with that. And emergency funds really are meant for these emergencies and not your IRAs, in my opinion. So make sure you work on building that up so you're not having a taxable event every time something bad comes up.
All right, one last financial stocking stuffer to kind of help set you up for future success. Schedule an annual financial checkup, Mike. It's so important to be doing this consistently. And if you haven't done it in a little while, take the time now to sit down with a professional like yourself to make sure everything is aligned.
Yeah, no difference than estate planning. It's something you just don't do once and then forget about it. You have to be making sure you're on track. And it's not just for us to show the clients where they're at, how great they've been doing, but we need to know, has their spending changed since we've seen them last? Have they bought anything? Have they drained their emergency funds out? Are they planning to move to a different state or upgrade their home? I mean, all these things need to be addressed in that planning meeting to make sure that everything is on pace to have a successful retirement. So we can only do what we can do on the investment side, but we want to make sure our plan is appropriate for where you're at today. And a lot of that gets opened up in these planning meetings. And I think once a year is minimum. We like to meet a lot of our clients 2-3 times a year to make sure things are up to date, especially if you're getting close to or in retirement, to make sure that your plan is working, and it actually will give you confidence to enforce that plan.
All right, so 10 stocking stuffer ideas to give yourself, right, to make sure you're putting yourself on a path for retirement success. If you have any questions for Mike, we'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below, but also call 855-987-8888 or log on principalpreservationservices.com. Start building your retirement reality roadmap today and set yourself up for 2025. Mike, as always, appreciate the time.
Thank you, Ben.
Investment advisory services offered through Alpha Star Capital Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. SEC registration does not constitute an endorsement of the firm by the Commission, nor does it indicate that the advisor has attained a particular level of skill or ability. Alpha Star, Principal Preservation Services, LLC, and Principal Wealth Services, LLC are separate and independent entities. Insurance products are offered through Principal Preservation Services, LLC, a Minnesota and Wisconsin insurance agency. Investment advice is offered through Principal Wealth Services, LLC. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products offered by Principal Preservation Services, LLC. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. Fixed insurance and annuity product guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing company and are not offered or guaranteed by Alpha Star.